Welcome to the ADHD Women's Wellbeing podcast. I'm Kate Moore-Youssef and I'm a wellbeing and lifestyle coach, EFT practitioner, mum to 4 kids and passionate about helping more women to understand and accept their amazing ADHD brains. After speaking to many women just like me and probably you, I know there is a need for more health and lifestyle support for women newly diagnosed with ADHD. In these conversations, you'll learn from insightful guests, hear new findings and discover powerful perspectives and lifestyle tools to enable you to live your most fulfilled, calm and purposeful life wherever you are on your ADHD journey. Here's today's episode. I'm here today trying to bring you the most up-to-date, practical lifestyle, well-being, holistic tools to help you on your ADHD journey and this new chapter in your life of understanding how neurodivergence impacts and has impacted your life and your family. And today, I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. I've got Lisa Rabinowitz here. Now, Lisa is a couples counsellor and she's written a book which is called Why Won't You Stop Interrupting Me?, which I think clearly says everything, what it's about. It provides simple solutions for ADHD couples. And she discusses things around communication challenges in ADHD relationships, but also celebrating the differences and finding strengths in ADHD affected partnerships and how these narratives impact our relationships. So I'll tell you a little bit about Lisa before we get started. She is a certified Gottman and Pact couples therapist, which I love hearing about Gottman relationship therapy, and has over 30 years of experience with ADHD, communication and relationships. And her book, Why Won't You Stop Interrupting Me?, provides these tools for couples navigating ADHD to improve connection and communication. We all need this. And she also is a professional speaker and delivers presentations on effective communication, work-life balance, and managing stress and conflict. And she also empowers teams and leaders with practical tools to enhance productivity, foster collaboration, and create balanced, healthier workplaces. So, I mean, it all transcends, doesn't it? Workplaces, relationships, families, just to have these communication tools is so important. So, Lisa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Kate. I really appreciate you having me here today.
It's wonderful to have you here to have this conversation because there's lots going on. So tell me, Lisa, obviously you've worked with ADHD in couples for a long time. We know, if we're on the ground with ADHD and we are ADHD or we live with an ADHD partner, have been parented by someone who's got ADHD or neurodivergent, we know it has a deep impact across the board. I guess, what have you seen, 30 years of experience? What are those sort of common denominators, the things that happen, the threads that you see that impact people that perhaps can be changed if we have more awareness and understanding and compassion?
Sure. So it cuts across so many different dimensions of relationships, communication, and it can be as simple as just, every couple has misunderstandings. But if I'm getting distracted, right, if I can't focus, if I'm feeling like up here sounds perfect, and then when it comes out, it sounds like just a big scrambled mess, it's going to create problems in our communication. So there's that one area. I think one of the biggest challenges is that one person can have ADHD and have these challenges, and another person can also have ADHD in the family and look totally different. And we can't compare and be like, you're worse than me, better than me. It's just, here we are showing up, and these are our strengths and these are our challenges. And we have to just work with that.
Yeah. It seems that as adults, you're being late in life diagnosed, we're starting to recognize that, if we're still with that partner and we've been attracted to them, that we're very often neurodivergent in different ways. And I've seen a pattern of someone with ADHD obviously being attracted maybe to someone with autism. And I'm going to generalize hugely here of perhaps the autistic person being a bit more routine, scheduled, ordered, tidy, again, generalizing, timing is everything. And then there's an ADHD person who's a bit more disorganized, scattered, flamboyant, all of these different things. And they kind of, if it works well, they mesh together and they bring out the strengths and help each other with the scaffolding for each one. But if it doesn't work and the communication styles keep butting heads, we can see how difficult that can be. Do you see that as well in your therapy?
100%. And I don't think people are talking about it as much as we really need to. When I came into the field, it was this person is the ADHD person and this is the non-ADHD person. And sometimes it is really hard because the person who's been the non-ADHD person thinks they are non-ADHD. But I see a lot of neurodivergence and they haven't been diagnosed. And they feel like I'm the organized one. I'm the one that has the routine, just like you described. But frequently, and again, like you said, generally, it could be on the spectrum, just showing up in a different way. They are attracting each other. And I would say very rarely do I actually see a truly non-ADHD partner with a ADHD partner.
Interesting.
I'm not seeing that.
That's so interesting. I'm looking around as well, and I'm, again, it's qualitative research as opposed to, but for the many clients I've had, my family, myself included in my relationship, it's across the board that it's almost this sort of magnetic desire to, yes, obviously the physicality. And then once you get past, the physical attraction, there's well, that person's really good at waking up in the morning and I'm not so good. So we sort of help each other. But that person is not so sociable, but they need someone else to bring them out of their shell a little bit. And we kind of complement and work with each other. But I wonder if you agree that as life gets harder, children involved, neurodivergent children involved, stressors, life, everything. And then all of a sudden those communication styles is a breakdown. Or maybe, like you say, that other person isn't willing to recognize their own neurodivergence. And there's sort of like a bit of blame going on of like, I'm the normal one and you need to sort your shit out, basically. And it's kind of like the neurotypical, in inverted commas, is saying, these are all your issues and you need to sort that. What do you do in that situation?
Right. So that happens frequently. And what I try to point to is if we put blame on one person, they're not going to stay in therapy. They're not. And I have people coming to me all the time with other therapists. I was the one to blame. I was the one that was bad. I didn't do this right. I should have done that more. I'm not good enough. So what's called level the playing field. You have your challenges and you have your challenges. And that's why in the book, I have 15 challenges for the ADHD partner. And I really wanted, I have to tell you, to come up with 15 for the I called it non-ADHD partner. I only came up with 8. But again, in any couple, you can see a mix. You might find yourself over here and you might find yourself over here, but usually there is some differences. So you each have your challenges. And that's how I look at it. I don't want to do the finger pointing. That's not going to be helpful for anybody. So we have a communication challenge. We are a 2-person system. The 2 of us are responsible. How are we going to work out the situation? So when a lot of tools come into play and it feels very different, they'll frequently tell me like, this feels very different because when it's the blame game, it's not comfortable. It doesn't feel fair. It doesn't feel balanced. I'm going to say, though, if somebody really has a true deficit in emotional regulation, or really the ADHD has not been dealt with, or it could be addiction, right? It could be an addiction that's not dealt with, or trauma that wasn't dealt with. We want people to get coaching, individual therapy, because otherwise we're not going to be able to show up in therapy and effectively work together as a couple.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think it's so important that we all have to take self-responsibility. And I say this, with love to so many of my clients and my community, that the ADHD has been there forever. And because we didn't know what it was, then it's been really hard to, I'm not going to say fix it, but like work with it and help ourselves. But now we have this awareness and we've got this opportunity to educate ourselves. We also have to take self-responsibility to work on our reactivity, our emotional regulation, our stress response, choosing different things, putting boundaries in place, all these things. No one can do that for us. And we have to step up to the mark. And sometimes I sound a bit harsh when I say we need to get out this victim mentality of like, life has been hard, but now that we have an understanding, we have a diagnosis, and I know that we're only at the very beginning stages of understanding neurodivergence. I really do think we are. Like, we can start, listening to the podcasts, getting the coaching, reading the books, actively making an effort. And I guess I'd love to give my listeners hope of, have you had couples that have come in and you think, oh my God, these guys are like, this is the crux point, and you've seen things turn around because they've understood how to relearn communication skills?
Oh, 100% every day, all day. So I have many people who are, I call it on the cliff, like, oh, we're about to go off the cliff and we're in deep trouble, or we are off the cliff and how we're going to pull it back and get away from the cliff. And frequently it's because they don't know how to work together. Like in the beginning, it was easy. I love your spontaneity. That's so much fun. Day-to-day spontaneity. No, like we have a routine. We have to 8:00. Like, let's get going. No, we can't stay in bed till 10. Right. And so these things that were so much fun that we loved now eventually become, I don't like, and maybe I really, really don't like, and they're becoming a problem. It's really nice to be creative. Right now we have to do this, right? And stay in the lane. And that creativity better go out the window because that's just not how we're doing this. Now, what do we do? And so it's first, like you said, we need understanding and we need a diagnosis if we haven't had one.
Mm-hmm.
Then we need true understanding, like, what does it mean for me? Because what I'm going to look like is different than anybody else. Then to bring that, both people need to have that awareness of, if one person happens to be the one struggling with ADHD, what does that mean? How is it impacting? Again, not blaming, but we need to understand and we need awareness. And then we can say, now what? It's not a divorce sentence. It is a learning opportunity. We're going to do something different. And when we slow down, which is sometimes really hard, then we can practice. What are we going to do next time? Because it's going to happen again that we didn't get up at 8:00 when we said we were supposed to, or we didn't pay the bill that we said we were going to pay. Like, there's certain things that we can predict. And now we can start planning and preparing, working together as a team and not against each other. It's a very different feel.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. I mean, I'm just thinking when you're talking, so many of us have had family trauma. There's been divorce, marriage breakdown, chaos, dysfunction due to undiagnosed ADHD, and that can impact families. We're looking at addiction. We're looking at financial, array. So many different things here. And I think now that we have awareness, we collectively, and I think I'm going to speak on behalf of many of my community, we want to break cycles, and we look back at the family dysfunction and we see a lot of heartbreak and difficulty and hardship and people not really enjoying lives, not thriving. And they kind of think, I don't want to be like that. I want my kids to grow up in calm, regulated households with more fun and happiness and laughter. And I think what you're saying is like, it is possible, but we have to recognize actually what are those difficulties. And I wonder, is it okay for the partner to be a scaffolding for the person who's got ADHD or neurodivergent? Like, what point does that partner has to sort of say, you know what, I have to pull away from being the scaffolding and you have to be more empowered here?
I think it goes back to what we both mentioned earlier, which is self-responsibility. First, we need everyone to be showing up. Now, it's okay if you have trauma in your history, addiction in your history, ADHD in your history, all of that in your history, whatever it is, but let's get the help we need. And as we're getting the help we need, right, we're going to get the support. We need a support. We need a support system, a community. I mean, your information to be able to get out to people, like, I'm not alone, because so often people feel like I'm the only one suffering. Nobody else gets this. No one else is going through this. No, you're providing this place where people are like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what's happening in my house. So it's so reassuring. And so what we're going to do is make sure everybody has what they need to show up. And again, that's not always going to be perfect. We are not looking for perfect. Perfect is in the movies. That doesn't really exist. So we're going to need to see where we are and then work from there. What's one small step? What's one small thing? And unfortunately, a lot of times we have been doing this scaffolding for 10 years. So thinking that it's going to end today is not realistic. And so you're going to feel like a failure. Your partner's going to feel like a failure. If you're like, I'm done, I'm not doing this anymore. I know, but you've been doing it for 10 years. So now how do we start rolling it back, start shifting slowly, but we have a goal in mind. We're trying to get to X place, and we're going to take one step together and one step together. We are in a 3-legged race. We are only getting to that finish line together. And so my partner can't fall. My partner falls, I'm not dragging him there or going, I made it to the finish line. That's great, but your partner's way back there. So what are we going to do to take one step forward today, this week? And that's why I like to try to really break it down into small pieces. What's one thing that we can start doing? And a lot of times it's about empowering people. When people feel empowered, like, I can do this, then they're willing to take the next step. And it really snowballs forward with gentle, loving encouragement and empowerment.
Yeah, I love that.
You forgot that and you didn't do that. That's not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's not going to do it.
Yeah. It's so nice to hear. I like that analogy of the 3-legged race, because like you say, if one goes down, we all go down type thing. So it's that new dance. I guess it's learning a new dance, isn't it, or how to do life. How can the non-ADHD partner, in whatever capacity they are, in a different spectrum or neurotypical, meet in the middle with their ADHD traits, which we know aren't going anywhere? Like, it's part of us, and the ADHD traits can be so amazing. Like you say, you talk about strengths. How do we then work with the strengths and start celebrating them?
So I slow down and ask couples every day, let's focus on a strength. Each day, we're going to sit down, and actually, we're probably going to talk about this at the end, but I'll just mention it now. There's a free giveaway, and in that free giveaway tells you different exercises to do together. And one of them is setting up a place together where you're going to sit and talk. And I give a lot more instructions than that, but that is very fun, foundational in my book, that you need to have a space. This is your space. And if you need fidget toys, if you need pillows, all sorts of scented things, whatever you like, I want you to make up a space. This is your conversation space, your connection space. I call it the nook. You can call it whatever you want. It's not supposed to be the bed. You'll see that in the book. The bed is a place that other things happen. This is a place where we are going to talk. And I know in some people's homes, it's not a perfect place. In some people's homes, they do. They have, like, oh, we don't really use this room so much, or we don't use this couch very often. Let's sit over here. Whatever it is. And you're going to sit down, and it takes 1 minute. Trust me, we spend lots of time talking about the negatives. We can spend 1 minute and say something and do something positive. And what does that look like for every couple? People can do all sorts of different things, but focus on the positive. That is what we're going to do. Again, it's such a small step, but when we start seeing the positive, we see it over here and over here and over here. And when we see the negative, we see it over here and over here and over here and over here too.
Yeah.
So our choice.
It's rewiring our neural pathways, isn't it? It's literally neuroplasticity for, helping our relationships, because I do think with our neurodivergent brains, we do have more of a negativity bias. Dr. Halliwell talks about the DMN, the default mode network in our brain, that is more prone to negative thinking and rumination and sort of like spiral of thinking, where we just kind of go down this dark hole and all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, my partner's awful, we're going to get divorced. And like you say, if we can do those small moments where we're really kind of like appreciating, we've got this gratitude for, all the stuff they do and all the amazing things, slowly we stop focusing on, it's kind of like moving the magnifying glass, isn't it? Or moving the flashlight over to a different part of them. And I have to say, it for me, I think I can be hypercritical, and my husband knows this, and I actively try hard to stop being critical and notice. And he's the most incredible husband. We've been married for nearly 21 years. And my diagnosis of ADHD has been a massive invitation to evolving our relationship, but also what he's never noticed, and I think he'll be fine with me saying this, is that he's definitely neurodivergent himself. Like, he openly says this. And as our kids have had diagnoses, which they've all had, we've got 4 kids, and it all shows up very differently, to the point where it's like, this is not all from me. This is there's a real mix of our neurodivergence going on, and he now sees it in different kids of ours, and he says, oh my God, that's how I was as a kid. Like, he's not that bothered about getting the official diagnosis. He kind of knows how he's tackled it through life and how he does tackle it and how he looks after himself. He's not as much of a seeker as I am. And what has helped our relationship, and I'm happy to share, is that it was very much at the beginning me doing all the legwork of understanding myself, getting help myself, therapy, coaching, medication, hormone replacement, all of that. Then with our children, I was the one that was actively going with the diagnoses, meeting the doctors. It was so hard. I was like battling it myself, going through it, doing it with my kids. And it took him much longer to come on board and be open-minded and accept it and see it. And I guess as he's seen the podcast evolve, my work evolve, now I've got a book coming out, it's almost like it's taken like 5 or 6 years for the penny to drop. But he is so much more open-minded now. I'm still teaching him, but I think what I'm trying to say is this reflection mirrors out into a lot of couples where there's one of the parents doing the legwork, supporting the children through their neurodivergence, getting all the help, and they've got another partner who is maybe a bit more close-minded or not open or pushes back. And that's really hard as well, isn't it?
Very, very hard. And, I have to say that women seem to have a tendency to be the seekers.
Mm.
Not that I'm biased or anything, but I do see that a little bit more. Not that I did a study on it, but I do see that women seem to be the ones that are learning, growing, wanting to read a book, give me a video, tell me as much as you know, and then wanting to share with the kids, and sort of like the husband sort of like trying to maybe catch up, maybe not interested, maybe like, because if there is some kind of neurodivergence, we might have rejection sensitivity, the RSD going on, dysphoria, rejection sensitivity dysphoria going on. Do we have the PDA, the pathological demand avoidance, which I actually can't stand that word, but
How would you describe that then? Because I also don't like it as well, but I see it a lot. Like, what other way would you describe PDA in relationships? Because I actually think that's something we need to talk about more.
Yeah, I just use the word resistance.
Yes.
Or avoiding. Not that always someone resisting and avoiding has PDA, and PDA does not stand, because I've had people say that public display of affection. No, that's not what it stands for. But it is pathological demand avoidance. Again, I hate that terminology. It just sounds so yuck. Like,
Yeah, it kind of shows up that resistance, isn't it? It's like, well, I see it as this sense of autonomy that we like to have. Like, we don't like to be told what to do, and we don't like authority. And if someone tells us what to do, it'll be like, no, I'm going to push back because it's going to be my way, and it has to be that autonomy. which is great when you're independent and you're running a business and you need that. But oh my God, it's hard to in a
Yeah.
relationship, and it was a child as a parent parenting a child with it.
Oh, yeah. 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 So you have that strength, right? Like to run a business. That's amazing. And you can overcome so many things. But when you're in a relationship and you ask your partner, can you do this? And they go, no. Right. So now what do we do? And then we feel stuck. And there's this feeling like a tug of war. And I always tell people, tug of war, let go. And then we got to figure out another way. But I want to finish our idea on like, what about if one partner's needing sort of to be pulled? I tell people, don't diagnose. People have traits. They don't have to necessarily have a diagnosis. And I know people feel uncomfortable with labels. And certainly, again, I'm talking in general, and this is stereotypical, but sometimes men feel like it's a weakness, something's wrong with me. I don't want anybody to know this. It's, there's a lot of stigma around it. And I've had people say, well, I was diagnosed when I was 5, 8, 10, whatever age with ADHD, but I'm 50. I don't have that anymore. And I'm like, well, there is a small percentage of population that it does actually disappear or decrease, which that's what the findings are. I don't necessarily see that in my practice. Maybe you learn to cope with it better, but I don't notice that it just disappears. But anyhow, that being said,
Evolves, doesn't it? And manifests differently, and
it manifests differently.
yes.
And it's just like, you know what? Let's just work. We got to work together. Whatever is showing up, here we are. Now, how are we going to figure this out? And that's the most important thing. So what are we going to do about it? If we don't want to call it PDA, let's just call it, right now there's a tug of war. Right now it feels like, we're not seeing eye to eye. How can we, again, take it out of something's wrong with one person or the other? And here's our problem. What are we going to do? Right? Every time I say, can you do this? You say no. That doesn't feel good to me. It probably doesn't feel good to you. So now what are we going to do? How are we going to work differently together and be more of a team? Right. And so, we can brainstorm of like, every time I ask you something, you'll say, let me think about it. And then, that distance sometimes, then people cannot do that knee-jerk reaction of no. They'll think about it, 1 minute, 5 minutes, whatever. We'll set a time, how long that's going to be. Then we're going to come back and answer. And usually when we come back and answer, it's going to be a little bit different than a no.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll tell you before, like, hey, I want you to know in 5 minutes, I'm going to come and ask you a question. So can you, sort of prepare yourself, right? And that person knows, because we've talked about it already, that it's not going to be no. It's going to be like, hang on, my partner's asking for help, or my partner needs something. How can I join them? How can I help them? Feels really different. And again, I can't say that one or both will help, but we're going to, again, brainstorm with, here's the problem. What are we going to do? And we'll give it a try. We'll try it once or twice. And if it doesn't work, okay, back to the drawing board. Now what are we going to do? And that's what happens. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're explaining is like, it's really simple, isn't it? It's just being mindful about it and conscious about the way we communicate. And so many of us, myself included, you just kind of like, everything's reactive, and you're not actually consciously deciding like, how do we want to communicate with each other? And it can feel a bit contrived, I guess, can't it, when at the beginning, when especially if you've been married for a long time, we've been with a partner, and you kind of think, this is really weird to say we're going to talk about something in an hour. Because we've got such busy lives, so many of us are juggling so much, and to squeeze in even a 5-minute conversation. My husband and I, we went out for dinner last week, and we probably hadn't had any proper alone time apart from watching TV together for weeks and weeks and weeks. And we did it. And every time we do, we kind of go, that was so nice. Like, we so needed that. But life just kind of, just takes over. But to be aware of that, or like you say, to have that nook, would you say that if you kind of feel a bit uncomfortable just of sitting and talking, eye contact directly, going for a walk is quite a nice thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some couples don't like sitting.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't want one person standing and one person sitting. So yeah, a walk for some people it's great, and other people it's not great. So I will tell you, do not though try not walking, sorry, driving in a car and having these kinds of conversations. What we know is a person who's driving is a resource for driving,
Yeah.
right? Not having a conversation. And certainly, I hope they don't do this. And look at the partner. Now, when you're walking, you can usually walk and look at your partner. So it is very likely that you're going to get into an argument in the car. So don't want to set you up for failure, want to set you up for success. So yeah, if walking works, great.
What would you say if you have a couple who, again, neurodivergent, different styles, and you've got one that is very wordy and that waffles and talks and says and like has a lot to say, and then you've got another partner that needs concise, quick, say it's like an elevator pitch, and they don't want to sit and listen, and you can't get your words out and all your emotions out in a 3-second, kind of explanation. How do you blend those communication styles?
Yeah, that's in the book. I don't remember what number, maybe 9 or something, but what we're going to do, again, this is a conversation. Okay, we have a problem, right? You like talking a lot. I don't like talking a lot. So what are we going to do? So we put it out here and go, okay, let's brainstorm and problem solve. Let's just put out a couple ideas. Number 1, maybe we're going to use a timer. You've got 2 minutes, 5 minutes. I know that in 2 or 5 minutes, whatever we set that timer for, it's going to end. And so that helps the other partner. It doesn't have 3 seconds. They know they have 2 to 5 minutes to talk. This partner knows in 2 to 5 minutes it's ending. I can sort of like hang in. Maybe I need some putty or something, or coloring, something to do while I'm waiting. I am supposed to be listening though, and paying attention. So let's just make sure we're not just like going, okay, 10, 9, 8, 7, like, are you done yet? That can sometimes help. Sometimes if we don't want to set a timer, maybe we'd have to work it out with the couple, but the one who's speaking a lot, the other one might say, hey, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to say, when I sort of have enough, I can't like take anymore, I'll say, hang on. And the hang on tells you like, take a breath. And maybe I'll summarize. So what I heard you say was bump, 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 bump. Yeah. Okay. I can continue, right? This person has a decision or, decision point of, I can continue. You can talk some more, or if I can't, then okay, now it's my turn. Because, one of the challenges is sometimes one person talks and the other person doesn't have a chance. So we want this person to also talk. We're going to have to do some negotiations. It's not going to be perfect. And one of the things is I practice it in my office. I want you to practice. Let's try this. If it doesn't go well, let's try something different. The person who has a lot to say might not want to be stopped. But again, 3-legged race. If I talk for half an hour, my partner fell about 25 minutes ago, you just keep talking. That's not good. Right? You are not going to be heard. Usually that person that's talking wants to be heard and listened to. They're not going to be able to. So when they start understanding that, yes, share, but you got to keep your partner with you, then they're more likely like, oh, if I stop and take a breath and they get a chance, they'll be able to hear me better and listen to me and validate me. Okay, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah.
That's not usually what they think is going to happen. They think like, if I talk for a half an hour, you'll understand me better. No, I stopped about 25 minutes ago.
Yeah. I understand that one very much. I've got a husband, bless him, who, unless I say what I need to say in about 90 seconds, he's walked out the door. And I'm like, you've just walked out. He's like, because you've said what you need to say. And I said, but I've still got so much more to say. But he processes things differently. So we might have a conversation about something important, and then he won't really speak at all. He just kind of just stops speaking. And then the next day, it's kind of like the downloads happened, he's processed it, and he's ready to kind of have a conversation about it. Whereas for me, I'm quite a fast processor, and I want to kind of clear the decks, kind of deal with it right there and then we just move on. Where it takes him longer.
Yeah.
And that's 21 years of marriage that we've only figured that one out.
I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to change. That's the challenge. But as soon as you understand it and you see it, right, it's not about why won't she shut up or why can't he talk? Because then it leaves such a bad taste in everybody's mouth with like, what's wrong with you? There's nothing wrong with either one of you. And there's nothing about intelligence, right? It's how we process.
Mm,
Okay, now what are we going to do? Right. And I'll tell you two other quick things that I'll suggest to people. Is sometimes a person who has a lot to say, I'll ask them to write it down.
mm,
Right. And sometimes the other partner will say, you know what, you could send that to me. And they'll read it and then they'll be able to respond to it afterwards. Sometimes the person's like, no, I really want to say it. I say, okay, great. You're going to do one of two things. Either bullet point it to 5 things. You can throw it into ChatGPT. And I'm serious. And people do this. Write it all out. Tell ChatGPT, I need to say this in 100 words or less. Can you help me summarize it? And voila, in 1 second, it will tell you
wow.
this is, you tell your partner. I use ChatGPT all the time. It is not, again, if a couple doesn't want to use it, they don't have to use it. But it's been so helpful for these different pieces because sometimes the person doesn't know how to summarize it. Sometimes the partner is like, no, I've got to say all of these things. Well, but your partner drowned, right? Like if you guys are in a boat, you're talking, you're paddling away, your partner just fell out and drowned. Well, we're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my God, this is so interesting, so helpful. And I can only imagine how great your book is, and which I'm going to be buying it immediately because this is what so many of us need. Because many of us love our partners, like we really love our partners and we want it to work. And we don't want to cause sadness and a split in the family. But sometimes we just don't know these communication styles. Like no one's taught us. So we, as adults, mostly in our sort of 40s, 50s, and 60s, are learning how to do relationships differently. And so what you're doing is incredible. And then if we can model to our children how we can communicate and hopefully do it without emotional dysregulation and reactivity and understanding what RSD is and how we can move through it with compassion and kindness and all these different things. Like it's amazing. So people I'm sure are going to be wanting to get in touch with you. Tell them how they can find you and guess what services you offer.
sure. So the best way is my website
Mm-hmm.
so that you can find out everything you want. It's counselorforcouples.com, counselorforcouples.com. I'm assuming, will that be in the link here or
Yes.
should I? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one way. And I wanted to share with your listeners, if it's okay, that the book basically came about because my couples would tell me, like, I want to read, I want to do some exercises. What can I do outside of session? And there's nothing out there. I mean, there's a few things, but this chapter is too long or this doesn't really provide me what I'm needing. And so what I did is I took all that information. There's stories in there to give hope because sometimes people can really feel like, I don't know. I don't really know if we can make this work. And there's really some great stories. And then I took little bits of information. And after you work on that little bit of information, because I know too much is not going to work, it's going to be too much to take in, then I give you questions that you can share on what you just read. And people have been contacting me saying like, oh, I love number, in chapter 2, I love number this question. And this was really helpful. And it brought connection and conversation in our nook, in that place that we connect. And then there's always a takeaway, because I believe if you don't have a takeaway, if it's not, okay, we're going to work on this thing today, this week, then it's like, oh, that's really nice. Oh, and I didn't want that kind of book. And so I really made it as useful or practical that you can do it today. So you can get that on Amazon. And I think those are really the best ways to reach out.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's so good to know, isn't it? Because when you're in the trenches and say maybe people can't, afford your counselling or there's a long wait list, to know that there's options out there, like a book that genuinely understands all the nuances of being in a relationship with neurodivergence and the impact that has, and all the different, it's kind of like an ecosystem, isn't it? And it infiltrates all the different parts of that ecosystem. When you're just reading a normal couples counselling book or a couples, therapy book, if that's not taken into consideration, it's kind of like reading the wrong recipe book for, if you want to cook Italian food and you're reading a Chinese recipe book, it's just not right. So I think a lot of people are going to find this book very, very helpful. So Lisa, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Much. Your community should just continue to grow, and you are providing such a resource. So thank you. Thank you so much.
If today's episode has been helpful for you and you're looking for even further support, my brand new book, The ADHD Women's Wellbeing Toolkit, is now available to order from anywhere you get your books from. I really hope this book is going to be the ultimate resource for anyone who loves this podcast and wants a deeper dive into all these kinds of conversations. If you head to my website, adhdwomenswellbeing.co.uk, you'll find all the information on the book there, which is going to be out on the 17th of July. Thank you so much.